Hello, and welcome back, my fellow friends, to a new episode of Kerbal Space Program. Having a nice lift-off as per usual, however, from a different point of view, this time in a helicopter. I really like this one. This is somehow special, I guess. But anyhow, so before we're going to jump into the video and talk about the video and the mission itself, a quick information disclaimer. I am planning on releasing a music video version of this video. If it hasn't come out yet, then be sure to subscribe and in order to not miss it, because it's probably going to drop tomorrow. If it is already 1 or 2 days after this video has been released, then there should be an info card in the top right corner where you can watch this video in a shorter format and with nice background music. Anyways, and with that being said, let's jump right into today's mission. So in the previous real episode, Luna City, if you haven't seen it, there's also a link in the top right corner. Be sure to have a look at this. We have built a massive surface base on the surface of the moon, which kind of serves as a new space, living space, new city, kind of literally, for the Kerbals. And there I actually mentioned what will be the next step in constructing good infrastructure around the moon, and that will be a space station. So in today's mission, we set ourselves as a goal building a nice, big, beautiful, massive space station. If I think about massive space station, the thing that comes to mind is my quote-unquote massive space station in low Kerbin orbit with the hangar module. That's kind of funny. So no, we're not going to build something. We're going to build something more realistic in terms of how it is constructed in a regular fashioned way. Anyhow, we saw just the very first module, and now we're going to skip to the next module. But as per se, this channel does a few interesting things every now and then. We're going to construct the second part of the module, or bring at least the second part of the module, to the moon via an SSTO. Yes, exactly, an SSTO. Brilliant, right? So, actually at this point, well, when kind of designing this SSTO, I actually thought about making something more bit ludicrous and say, let's build an entire space station around the moon just using SSTOs. That kind of sounds familiar, right? For those of you who do watch some Matt Lone videos, he did exactly the same thing, but just in low Kerbin orbit. So that would be something to kind of one-up Matt. But I decided to, quite honestly, not to bother, since there would be a lot of comments or something like you're just faking and recreating what Matt Lone did. So yeah, that's why I opted not to do that. And yeah, anyhow, so with that kind of weird takeoff and my explanation why we're using an SSTO in the first place being completed, we now can jump into the more fast forwarded footage, I think. Anyhow, so the SSTO approach, the ascent is pretty standard, nothing really I want to talk about too much, since if you do want to have a look at how I fly my SSTOs, be sure to head over to the SSTO playlist. There are a bunch of very good SSTO videos as well as explanatory guides, and yeah, that's pretty much gist of that. So after we now pretty much are in orbit, going to jump straight to the moon, since doing 2 orbit race maneuvers, I decided to not show them since we showed the first encounter pretty good. We got here with the first segment, and yeah, so we just open up the cargo base, take out the module via RCS. Which is, so I should maybe I should start talking about the different modules. So the first core module that we brought, obviously, is the core module. Wow, who would have guessed that? Now, its intention, kind of main purpose, is this 6-way docking adapter down there, and the kind of big orange fuel tank with the small junior docking port that is rotatable at the very top, is kind of just to have some fuel storage capacity and to have the opportunity to fuel other crafts. Anyhow, after having constructed now or added the second part of the station, we now take our SSTO and start flipping it around and sending it to another way. However, we're not going to follow the SSTO just yet. We're going to jump back to it in just a couple of minutes. And with that, we have our third launch. Again, a pretty big and beautiful, well, beautiful, yeah, why not? I mean, all rockets are beautiful. a nice rocket here, again having a nice lift off, so we're going to see a couple of those here, and of course we're going to see a couple of booster separations as per usual, since I do love those booster separations, be they Corellian crosses or just regular booster separations. They are always beautiful. And here we are, thanks to the power of video editing, again around the moon, or at least in our orbital insertion around the moon. Here you can see ourselves having, well, after a pretty decent approach with only 1.3 degrees of inclination, just slowing down until we have a nice intersect, well, slowing down until we have an intersect that makes kind of sense, not like in a super elliptical orbit. And now we could jump forward to the rendezvous and kind of the last bit where we are docking actually. So here we have a new module, obviously, and I personally call this module, it's the Mark 1 segment. It's kind of counterintuitive. Yes, we do have Mark 2 docking ports and everything, but it has this prolonged Mark 1 fuselage where now the the rescue capsule is more or less situated, because this is kind of to extend the station towards a section which will be primarily out of Mark 1 parts. With that, we have a next very loud liftoff here with massive engines, and as per usual, I do love all those rockets that we have launching today. And this shot actually is a bit interesting, or interesting fun, and we can actually see the moon itself as well. And of course we're going to show the beautiful booster separation of those two massive orange boosters. But yeah, speaking of massive, this rocket is rather large, and its payload is as well pretty heavy. So this payload is the science module. So we are, again, thanks to the power of video editing, in the docking procedure. So as you can obviously see from the fact that this is a science module, we have a bunch of scientific laboratories there and communication equipment, science experiments, radar scanner dishes, scanner arrays, communications dishes, the magnetometer boom thingy. So this is like literally the science module, and that's the point of it, as well as providing some communications that's just, I think, fits a bit into the theme of it. I do know that we had already the other laboratory on the other module, but that was just for crew capacity's sake. And with that, we have a next liftoff of another rocket. Wow, we do have quite a lot of liftoffs here, and different rockets. And this one is actually a bit special, and you will see in a couple of, I think in a minute or so. So here we are jumping forward to the stage separation, and now you probably can already guess why this is a bit special, since you can see on the lower stage we've got a bunch of air brakes, and you maybe see there one parachute. Exactly, we're going to jump back to that stage just after docking. And here we have now, opposite of the Mark 1 part, where we actually moved the rescue cabin slightly, well, below. Okay, if you can say that, underneath, since in space there is not really up and down. Anyways, so this is the, like I said, the Mark 3 segment, because of the obvious Mark 3 parts. Yes, I do know that we have Mark 2 first and then Mark 1s. Kind of go into the Mark 3 segment, because I do think that kind of looked interesting, a bit special, not just having a all the time the same diameter sized parts. Makes it a bit special. And here on the very end of the Mark 3 kind of crew segment, we have the two solar array arms, which will be extended just in 1 second, and there we go, with some radiators underneath it. So they are kind of, well, modeled is the wrong way, but I do took some inspiration from the actual ISS whilst constructing them. And on the very end you can see another one of those movable docking ports. But yeah, this is nothing really worth talking a lot about. Now jumping back to the booster itself, we are performing a deorbit, our deorbit burn rather close to the KSC, and our entry burn as per se, in order to slow ourselves down, in order to not overheat, and B, land rather close to the KSC. With the landing close to the KSC, well, that actually went a bit too far. However, we can still say we're pretty close to the island runway, at least. at least somewhat close. And after slowing down with the parachutes primarily and a nice final touchdown burn, we have successfully landed this booster and it can be recovered in the next mission. However, our, I think, last launch in this video is using yet another booster, yet another rocket. So I try to vary the design of the rockets every time, and I'm going to be quite honest, every time I do build a rocket, I'm not really trying to recreate the same rocket I did earlier, so there's always some variation in there. And there we have our next module. However, we're going to jump forward back to the moon, or forward to the moon, I guess makes more sense, and we will dock this segment to the last remaining kind of core docking port. And this is a very weird looking module. It has no crew compartments apart from the hitchhiker storage container in the very top, but those very long weird thingies sticking out underneath. But more to them in just a second. First we're going to take the second small payload we had on top of that, and this is actually small signs and protrusion. So we can see those small 3 signs juniors, and I thought it would be cool having one of those one segment where Mark 1 parts are kind of stacked together like those in this with those tri-couplers, and having a multiple of those. So I decided to build something like that and add it to the science module stage section. And with now we detaching small satellites, even though they're primarily used. Well, their only use was just to function as structural support, where you can attach all the struts to, and once we ditch them, the struts disappear, and we can deorbit those things and get rid of all the supporting structures that was that were holding those 4 girder segment arms together. Because now we can actually, this is the main part of that, we can extend these girder segments and provide a special utility service. But before we talk about that, you can see that there is a long kind of central beam. So this is just mainly in order to move this entire section with all those docking ports underneath a bit further away from the center of the space station, in order to not interfere with it. And with not interfere, I mean with all the different things that we could attach down here. So this segment here is used, or will be used, or can be used in order to attach all sorts of different crafts, either a bunch of small crafts with the underneath with those regular docking ports, or even on the side, because we can swivel those at the very edge up to the 90 or 180 degrees. Or we could of course attach some big large craft via the large docking port in the center there. So this just gives us a bunch of different options to add in the future other special modules or ships for that being said. And with that we can just jump over, slow down footage to regular speed and admire this beautiful space station. And with that, it is finished. However, we still have something left to do, so we're going to jump back in time. As a matter of fact, well, yeah, since you can see here the very cool the first 2 modules of the space station in the background. But no, we're going to take now the space plane. It's not a space plane, god darn it. The SSTO, of course, or SSTM, space single stage to moon. Okay, no, that was cringy. Anyhow, so we're going to take the SSTO and do a nice direct return from the moon to a nice 47-kilometer periapsis around Kerbin, so that we can go in for a nice aerobraking. So after time warping down, just retracting all the solar panels and the closing up the cargo bay, and going for a first aerobraking pass. As you can see here, we the apoapsis dropped quite a lot, but still by no means we're going to deorbit. So again, as Shadow Zone always does, even though we didn't explode. So we're going to go through another aerobraking path, and another one, and another one, and another one, until we finally deorbited and had a nice approach towards the KSC. So and this is where we are now. So we are now at our final approach. We're still rather fast and a bit high, so that's kind of a bit, let's say, problematic. and we are already, like I said, on a final approach, so we can't turn back from now. So yeah, and we totally overshot, as you can see here, but I mean, it makes sense, right, that this is not yet over, since otherwise I wouldn't show the video. So we slowed down enough after, well, like I said, passing over the KSC as well as the island runway, and then we started doing a nice, slow and careful turn around, and ignite our engines and fly back. And with still quite a lot of fuel left over, we do have enough, or more than enough range to fly back, and more than enough thrust-to-weight ratio to fly back. But I decided to land on the island runway, since while flying all the way to the KSC back would have been just a tiny bit further, yes, still manageable, yes, but why not landing on the island runway? It's a bit special, it's something that I usually don't do, and with that being said, we're approaching for a final touchdown and engaging the brakes and spinning a bit around and drifting to a nice beautiful stop. Perfect landing, I guess. Well, at least a perfect Kerbal landing. And on this note, I hope you've enjoyed today's video and stay tuned for the next episode where we're building a lot of infrastructure around the moon. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, Space Sheep signing out. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friends.